The city of Vadris never slept, but it did bleed. Every dusk the gas lamps along the canal bridges coughed to life, and every dawn the tide carried away whatever the night had left behind. Broken bottles, broken promises, and sometimes broken bodies. The people called the tide the debt collector, because sooner or later it took what was owed. Lyra Voss was 17, and owed more than most. She lived in the attic of a leaning printer's shop on Saltiron Street, above the smell of wet paper and cheap ink. The roof leaked in 7 places. She kept 7 bowls. When the bowls overflowed, she sold another piece of her childhood. A silver thimble, her mother's wedding ring, the last book with her father's marginalia. The books always hurt most. Her father had been the lantern bearer of Vadris, the one who walked the city every night with the great iron lantern that held a shard of living starlight. The lantern kept the mist at bay. The lantern kept the city sane. Then one night, 7 years ago, the lantern had gone dark and her father had not come home. The city council declared the office of lantern bearer abolished. Too expensive, they said. Too old-fashioned. The mist crept closer every winter, thick as grief, and people began to disappear into it. First the drunks, then the children, then anyone foolish enough to walk alone after the bells of 10th hour. Lyra still had the key, a dull iron thing as long as her palm, hung on a leather cord around her neck. It opened the lantern. It opened the vault beneath the old observatory where the star shard waited. She had never used it. She had promised her mother she never would. Her mother was dead now, 2 winters past. Fever took her the same week the printers raised the rent again. So the promise was a ghost, and ghosts have no claim on the living. On the first night of the month of Hollow Bells, Lyra climbed down the attic ladder with nothing but the key, a coil of rope, and the coat her father used to wear, still too large, smelling of lamp oil and salt. She had a debt to pay. The vault lay under the ruined observatory on the northern hill, past the district where even the debt collector feared to tread. The streets narrowed to alleys, the alleys to cracks. Fog pressed against her face like wet wool. She kept one hand on the wall and counted her steps the way her father had taught her when she was small enough to ride his shoulders. At the iron gate of the observatory she hesitated. The gate was rusted open just wide enough for a child or for a thin girl who had stopped eating properly. She slipped through. Inside, moonlight dripped through the broken dome and pooled on the mosaic floor. The vault door waited at the far end, ancient bronze gone green with age. The lock was shaped like a screaming mouth. Lyra fed it the key. The mouth closed, swallowed, and the door side open. The stairs spiraled down so deep she lost count at 200. At the bottom was a round chamber lit by nothing at all, yet she could see. The star shard floated in the center, no larger than a heart, blazing white and furious. Around it hung the lantern, black iron, tall as a man, cold as winter. Lyra had expected triumph. She felt only dread. She lifted the lantern. It weighed nothing and everything. The moment her fingers closed on the handle, memories that were not hers flooded in. Every street her father had walked, every face he had saved, every scream he had been too late to answer. She saw him on his final night, limping, bleeding from a wound in his side, pressing the key into 6-year-old Lyra's hand. "Only if the city truly needs it," he had whispered. Then the mist had taken him. Lyra opened the lantern's glass throat and reached for the shard. Pain lanced through her arm as though she had seized lightning. The shard sank into the lantern and the lantern sank into her. Light poured out of the seams of the iron, out of her eyes, out of her mouth. She screamed once, a sound that cracked stone, and then the light settled, banked, obedient. She was the lantern bearer now. She climbed back into the city, carrying dawn inside her chest. The mist recoiled as she stepped onto the street. Shapes that had been gathering at the edges, tall, jointless things stitched from shadow and hunger, slid away like smoke. Lyra raised the lantern high. Its beam cut clean channels through the fog, revealing the cobbles, the shuttered windows, the sleeping city that had forgotten how to hope. She walked. She walked the canal paths where the suicides went to drown. She walked the rookeries where mothers locked their doors with chairs. She walked the grand boulevards where the rich now traveled only by armed carriage. Every street she touched brightened, as though the city itself exhaled. By the time the bells of 4th hour rang, half of Vadris was awake and staring from windows. By 5th hour, people were following her, first a handful, then dozens, then hundreds. They carried candles, kitchen knives, boat hooks, anything that might pass for courage. Children ran alongside her barefoot. Old men wept openly. Lyra kept walking. The lantern never dimmed. Near the docks, she found the first body, a boy no older than 10, throat opened ear to ear. The mist had been feeding. She knelt, closed his eyes, and pressed light into the wounds until the blood dried and the boy looked only asleep. She could not raise the dead. The star shard was not that kind, but she could give them dignity. She walked until sunrise bled across the water, and still the mist retreated before her. At the great square in front of the council hall, she stopped. The crowd behind her filled the square until there was no room left for fear. She planted the lantern in the cracked pavement like a flag. Then she waited. The council arrived at noon, 9 men and women in velvet and ermine, faces pale with rage and terror. They had not expected the lantern-bearer to be a half-starved girl in an oversized coat. The Lord Provost, a thin man with a voice like rusted hinges, stepped forward. "This office was dissolved by lawful decree," he said. "You are in possession of stolen property. Surrender the lantern and you may leave with your life." Lyra looked at him for a long moment. Then she lifted the lantern. Light flared so bright that every shadow in the square vanished. People cried out and shielded their eyes. "Stolen," she said, and her voice carried to the back of the crowd without effort. "My father paid for this with his life. What did you pay?" Silence. She told them what the lantern showed her. The accounts where money meant for lamp oil had purchased country estates. The ledgers where missing children were listed as budget reductions. The nights the council dined on pheasant while the mist took another street. When she finished, the crowd was no longer looking at her. They were looking at the council. The provost tried to speak again, but someone threw a fish, then a cobblestone. Then the square exploded into movement. Lyra did not stop them. She simply raised the lantern higher so that no one on either side would fight in darkness. By nightfall, the council chamber was burning. By morning, a new council sat in the ashes, 12 ordinary citizens chosen by lot, trembling but determined. Their first act was to reinstate the office of lantern-bearer at full pay, retroactive 7 years. They offered Lyra a mansion. She refused. They offered guards. She laughed. In the end, they gave her back the attic above the printer's shop, repaired the roof, and left her alone. She walked every night after that. Some nights were quiet. She would find a drunk asleep on a bench and cover him with her father's coat until he sobered. Some nights were not. The things in the mist learned her name and hated her for it. They left pieces of themselves on her doorstep. A child's shoe filled with teeth, a mirror that showed tomorrow's corpse. She burned the gifts and kept walking. Years passed. The city changed. Children born after the hollow bells grew up never knowing a night without the lantern's distant glow. They called her the debt payer because she walked until every debt the city owed its dead was settled in light. On the 7th anniversary of the night she took up the lantern, Lyra woke to find the attic filled with dawn. The star shard inside her chest had grown warm for the first time, almost hot. She understood what it meant. She was dying. The shard had never been meant for a human heart. Her father had known it would burn its bearer out. He had taken the duty so his daughter would never have to. She dressed carefully, clean shirt, patched trousers, the old coat. She kissed the printer's wife on the cheek and left a note that said only thank you. Then she walked to the square where it had all begun. A crowd gathered as always, but this time she did not raise the lantern. She set it gently on the stones. "I kept my promise as long as I could," she said. Her voice was soft. The square was silent enough to hear it. "The city is bright now. You don't need me anymore. But the lantern will always need someone." She looked over the sea of faces until she found the one she wanted. A girl of 10 with ink-stained fingers and eyes too old for her face. The girl had followed Lyra every night for a year, silent as a shadow, asking no questions. Lyra beckoned. The girl came forward, frightened but steady. "What's your name?" Lyra asked. "Rin," the girl whispered. "Rin," Lyra repeated. "Do you know what this costs?" Rin nodded. She had seen the scars on Lyra's arms, the way she sometimes coughed light instead of breath. "Will you pay it anyway?" Rin looked at the lantern, then at the city stretching bright and alive beyond the square. She took a shaky breath. "Yes." Lyra smiled. It hurt her cracked lips, but it was real. She placed the girl's hands on the lantern's handle. Light flared, fierce and clean. Rin gasped and staggered, but did not let go. When the light settled, her eyes reflected Starfear. Lyra stepped back. The coat was too big for Rin, but it would fit someday. She walked away through streets that no longer needed her. People reached out to touch her sleeve as she passed, but she only smiled and kept walking until the city fell behind her and the road climbed the northern hill toward the observatory. The mist waited there, patient as an old debt. Lyra did not hesitate. She had spent 7 years driving it back. Now she walked into it willingly, coat flapping like a broken wing. Behind her, far away, a new lantern rose above Vadris, smaller, fiercer, carried by smaller hands. The mist closed over Lyra's head, and for the first time in 7 years, the debt collector took someone who went gladly. They say if you climb the hill on the night of the hollow bells, you can still see 2 lights. One moving through the city, steady and enduring, and another far out beyond the walls, a faint, wandering star that never quite goes out. The city keeps both. It always will.